Hello, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. Rusty and Heather Bryant here with you again to talk about your marriage questions.
Have we told them, here you come, cub, here we come, cub?
No.
And you're looking at me like we probably shouldn't. So when we went to Montana several weeks ago, our youngest, they tell you to say, hey, bear, hey, bear. So the bears will go away. Well, Logan kept saying, here we come, cub. Here we come, cub. And it just kind of got to be a family joke. So maybe we should do, here we come, cub, instead of, hey, bear.
I don't say hey, bear. I say hello, folks.
Oh, hell.
That's why I was like, what are you talking about?
That's right. But Nate says both.
Nate Bargassi, that's where hello, folks comes from. And he says, hello, folks, and hey, bear.
Okay.
That's how he starts all of their all their podcasts.
Yeah. So we should just say, here we come, cub.
No, let's don't. All righty.
Anywho,
here we are, back answering some questions.
Yes.
All right. So we are in kind of the home stretch, maybe, of the Summer Shorts series where we're answering your questions. We don't want you to stop asking questions. If you've got a question, it's not too late to be entered into the drawing. So sometime in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be announcing how we're going to be doing that drawing, because hopefully we're going to get the chance to involve everyone, so everybody gets to be a part of watching us draw. So we're still figuring out the details of that and how it's going to work, but we want you to definitely want you to stay tuned so we can do that. But send in your question if you have a question. Last thing real quick, because some of you do listen to us every week, and so you're winding up the summer. Heather goes back to work tomorrow.
If you're listening to this on Monday.
Teachers are reporting tomorrow here in Mississippi. But we also want you to know, August, we will be starting back our marriage coaching. And we've actually gone through and done all the way through November. We have our calendar that is available. So August through November. So if you're interested in marriage coaching, it's one of our favorite things that we do, and we love getting to know couples from all over the world and getting a chance to journey with them through marriage. And so we would love, if you've ever considered that or wanted to be a part of marriage coaching, we don't farm that out to other people. We do that ourselves. People ask that sometimes. It is us, and we'll spend time with you. Well, it ends up being 5 sessions because the first session is just a no obligation. We get a chance to chat, and then we do 4 sessions after that, and it's incredible. So if that's something that you're interested in, please reach out to us. Lots of different ways to do that, but you can also get all of the marriage coaching information straight from our website, theredeemedmarriage.com. All right, that was it. The only commercial service announcement. You read the questions for us today.
So today we're doing something a little bit different. We had 2 questions that were submitted that were similar yet opposite. And I was like, we can crush both of these at one time. So we're actually going to have 2 winners this week. So we will contact you to see what merch you want from us. One of them, we're going to have to reach out to you and actually find out where you live, because this one doesn't have an address on it. So I cannot say the state. But this is the question. Are you ready? I confessed my affair to my husband 1 year ago. He says he still loves me, forgives me, and wants to work through it and stay married to me. We have both been going to marriage counseling together, and we have each started individual counseling as well as meeting with our pastor. The struggle for me is that he brings up the affair on a daily basis and tends to throw it in my face almost in every conversation. This makes it very difficult for me to want to engage in any conversation for fear that he will bring up my past and the past that I would love to forget. When this happens, I tend to get sad. I feel depressed and wonder how I could have fallen into such a terrible sin. I cry almost every day, and I wish there was a way that he and I could have normal conversations without throwing a jab about the affair into it. How do we move past this? Okay. So that's coming from the person who was the betrayer and asking, how can we move past that? All right. The next one that is along those same lines is from Minnesota. And I'm not going to guess where that is. And
Good
okay.
call. Good call.
And this one says, I'm grateful to God for his mercy and redemption. My husband and I are 2 years post-affair. So the first one was 1 year. This is 2 years. I'm still healing from that broken trust and find that sometimes I need to talk out certain things about it with him. So again, this is from the betrayed.
Right.
Okay. How do I go about healing from betrayal when I feel anxious bringing up his affair because I don't want to cause him to feel guilty for what he did? So
Both sides.
both sides.
And we hear these questions all the time.
So the
people.
betrayer is like, help, because my husband keeps jabbing at me about it. And then the second one is, I've
been betrayed,
been
and I need to talk through it.
right, but I don't want to bring it up because I don't want him to hurt. So there's these extremes in how people deal with it. And to be honest, I don't think that there's one way to deal with it. I think that different couples are going to deal with it. When I say deal with it, I mean talking about it.
Well, this is, I was doing some one-on-one mentoring just this past week, and that's one of the things that I was saying is, in our story, we can share our story, and we can share what we did, the good and the bad, the mistakes we made along the way, but also the positive things. And the thing about it is, it becomes this roadmap for other people, because they can look at us and they can say, okay, this couple went through infidelity, and here they are almost 13 years later, and they have a redeemed, great marriage with lots of joy, all of that kind of stuff. So you can look at what we did and you can, well, they must have done some stuff right. And I would say that by the grace of God, we did, because we didn't have a lot of instructions.
That's right.
We did some things that gave us some good instruction along the way. But for the most part, we've figured it out on our own, which is kind of what you're saying. Some of these people, they're going to be a little bit different, but at the same time, they can look at us and say, well, this is how they did it. And they were successful.
Yep.
So everything that we're going to say, I wanted to just kind of preface it by that, because I want people to know, you're right, there's not this exact formula that says, hey, if you do this, everything is going to be great. That's not necessarily the way it works. But the hope is that you look at a couple that's like, man, they made it. So maybe we can find some things here and there that are going to help us get there. So in this situation, I don't know. I just feel like this is one of those things that we did struggle with it. I think both of us struggled with it, but we handled this. I mean, we don't get to talk to a lot of people that have gone through this other than the people that we're coaching. So it's hard for me to say, oh, those people, they did it better than us, or what,
Right. Yeah.
because I don't know that. But I just feel like, for whatever reason, God, man, we handled this really, really well.
Well, and he gave us both mentors that really poured into us in that area, that kept our eyes off of ourselves. Like, I know my mentor, when I would want to, like, really, really talk about certain things, or even come back at you a little bit about, well, why do you need to know that? Why, that she would go, hey, this isn't about you. Like, let's keep your eyes on where they're supposed to be, and quit looking at how it's going to affect you. And let's think about your husband. And I think that was important, because if we get into our world, like, I deserve, I want, then that gets to be a hard place to be, because you're not considering the feelings and considering the effect and considering how your spouse is going to feel in that.
Well, and I think in the same way, because I had somebody else to talk to about it, I didn't have to talk to you about it all the time. Now, my goodness, we had plenty of conversations through the years
Sure.
about it, but it wasn't something that I had to bring up every single day, because I did start feeling that tension, just like these questions are asking, that tension of, well, I really need to talk through this. But when I bring it up, then I'm just heaping this shame and guilt on you. And so I had a mentor that I was able to talk with. And so that would be one of the things that I would say is that for both of these couples, they need to be journeying with people, because when you're, and I know so much of this is because it's a secret. Nobody wants to know. You don't want to tell you want people to know. You don't want to tell your junk to everybody. But we're not meant to journey through this alone. Just like one of our brilliant children said the other day on our podcast, but it's about community. And so whether that's us being a resource for you, or someone in your church, somebody that you trust, another couple that can journey with you, there needs to be something, because I think that a lot of times you can eliminate having to talk about it all the time with your spouse that may hurt one way or the other. And, it gives you an opportunity to bounce some things off, because I know for me, it was, hey, do you really want to know that? And also one of the things that we learned so much from your mentor is play things out in your mind, and you say, then what? Then what? Then what? And so,
Like, if you get the answer to that,
yeah,
then what?
Then what? Like,
what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, and what do you really want to know? What do you want to hear? What is the goal for bringing it up in that
Is it
situation?
going to help? Is it going to hurt?
Yes. And so to be able to walk through that and say, okay, well, if I do take this jab, and even if it's not a jab, if it's just I genuinely want to talk to you about this, then it's kind of like, but then what? And I had this conversation with somebody this week, because which this is great, because he is able to come to me and talk through some of this stuff, which then he doesn't heap the guilt and shame on his wife. And so we're able to talk through some of this stuff. And I told him that even to this day, I have to go through that. Then what? And I talked to him about, I'm not going to go into a lot of details here, but I strongly dislike the beach. And I didn't like it beforehand, but some of the parts of our story made me dislike it even more. And you had the opportunity to go to the beach this past week with a couple of friends, which was incredible for you, and I'm really glad. But at the same time, there were times while you were there that I would just get this hurt. And so I had to go, she hasn't said anything to me about that. And so maybe I should remind her that it's hurtful. The beach is a really painful place for me. But then I would go, but then what? Like, what good is that going to do? And so instead, I shifted I shifted all of my thinking, and I was like, what a redemption story for you, because you were actually there with someone that we had journeyed with, which is incredible. And so you just have to play it out. And as I played it out, the then what, I was like, what an incredible story of redemption. Why would I even bring something up? And for me to even have the thoughts of, I can't believe she's not saying anything.
Yeah.
Like, that's eyes on me,
Yeah.
It's just.
And I think that's good. I also hear people thinking, yeah, but y'all this is 13 years.
For sure.
And so we've come a long way in how we process things. And although we didn't do a terrible job at the beginning, it was a lot. it was a lot more often and more frequent that we
Yes.
talked about it because it was fresh and new. And so I look at these couples that are asking, and there's one that's 1 year out and one that's 2 years out, and I think there's still conversation
Sure.
that is going to circle around these two topics. And I was thinking when our boys were on here, I was like, I wonder if we didn't do this. Like if we didn't, I mean, we talk about our story all the time because we do this, we do coaching, we do one-on-one mentoring. So our story gets told a lot, and we revisit it often and often and often and often. But I wonder if we didn't do this, how much how much we would talk about our
Right.
story still.
Right.
And we have no way of knowing that because that's not our reality. But I do think that for these two couples that have 1 year and 2 year out, I think that there's just more conversation that needs to take place. And I know that from those early years, and I wanted to touch on that real quick, the early years, we had some guidelines and some rules that our mentors told us that we very, very much abided by with everything. Now, did we screw up? Sure. But we tried to maintain these things. And I know for me, one of them was, and my mentor told me, if he wants to know the answer to something, answer it. Like there was never a reason for me to say, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not, I mean, because that's just secrecy. Now, there were times where I think that we were very wise, and I said, I will be more than happy to answer that question for you. But before I answer it, I just want to know, are you sure you want to know the answer?
Yeah. Like this is gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt. So what are you kind of like the then what that you were
What are you
talking
gonna
about?
do with this information?
When I tell you this answer, is it going to help you process, or is it going to hurt you by just being an absolute jab into an open wound, or pouring alcohol into an open wound, whatever. So I know that that is a wisdom and a mature question to ask.
Yep.
And so you can ask it, do I really want to ask this question? Or if you're asked the question, you can then say, I'll be more than happy to answer it. But do you really want to know the answer? Is that going to help you or hurt you?
Yeah.
Another thing that I was thinking about when I read these questions was you you did such a great job. And I don't know how you did this, because if the roles were reversed, I'm just going to tell you I would not have done as great of a job as you did. But you did a great job in not playing the trump card. Like, kind of explain that a little bit, because you do better at that.
Well, I never held it over your head,
Yeah.
or it was never one of those things where I felt like, well, I can do whatever I want because, I mean, I hold the trump card, I hold the ace of spades, now. And anytime I want to win an argument, if we're arguing about something, I can say, and you have a right to be mad at me because why?
Right.
And do you remember what you did? Like I had to be so really careful about not doing that. But that's why this journey is such it takes both. I mean, and that's the part that's so painful. Like when we're on social media and we say stuff and we make comments or give tips or give advice, and people are like, well, I wish it was like that. And I agree, because for us, it was, we were both doing everything. We made mistakes, but we were doing everything that each one of us individually had to do. So you made it really easy for me to not play the trump card, because for one, you were totally becoming a changed person, and I was watching that. So there was, I mean, you were becoming the marriage, you were becoming the spouse that I always dreamed I would have. And so why did I want to hurt that? I could look back even pre-infidelity and go, man, like, this is so much better than even the honeymoon years. Like, you are the person that I wanted. So there was not a reason for me. I didn't want to hurt you any more than you were already hurting. But at the same time, what you were doing was, I'm an open book. I will do anything. I will do anything to make this right, to answer your questions. And so when you put those two things together, then there's not a lot of tension. And whenever there comes something that we needed to talk about, then you could say, hey, I'm happy to answer this, but I don't want to hurt you anymore. But if you need to know, then let's talk about it. And we were able to do it when we did that in a very mature way. But the worst thing is, for like this one couple said that it just comes up in every conversation. Right. Like, that's not healthy. And they said that they're going to counseling and things are good. Well, something's not clicking with that person. And for me, it's something's wrong in their heart. They're not growing and through this process and learning. Look, I know this is extremely hard.
It's hard.
It is extremely hard. But we've heard, I was listening to a podcast last week, and this couple that I didn't know about that had actually gotten divorced. I was telling you about it. They got divorced and then remarried. Some musicians from Nashville. I love their story. Don't know much about it, but I've kind of started trying to find out a little bit more. I've watched some videos and things like that. But one of the things they said on the podcast was that when they went to counseling, that their counselor told them that they had 3 months. There was a 3-month time limit. Now, we've talked about this before to some people that we coach, because we've heard this in other situations, that the counselors would say, the therapists would say, all right, you've got a timeline. Let's set a time, and it may be, whatever it is. But for this couple, it was 3 months. And after those 3 months, you stop talking. You stop asking questions, basically.
Right.
And
Not
it
stop
doesn't
talking
mean,
about it.
Right. It doesn't mean that you stop talking about it, but that's kind of the point where it's like, all right, we've dug in deep to this stuff, and now it's time to start moving forward. And look, the timeline, I don't love that, because we didn't do it, and we were very successful we didn't put a timeline, but there came a point where it was just like, I don't need to know anymore. And again, that can be different from everybody, but it was also this knowing that I don't want to ask any more questions, but I know that if I need to, you're going to answer
Absolutely.
it. And you're not going to come back with me and go, do we have to keep revisiting this?
Right.
Like, for me, I feel like you just, from the very beginning, you were like, I don't, in this area, I've lost my rights. Like, you are in control, and I'll do anything. Right. And I didn't take advantage of that.
That's right. And that's the give and take.
Yes.
Because if one person goes too far on either side, like if I were to withhold and you push too hard, then there's not a sweet balance. And I think that that's just really praying about, God, open my mouth when it needs to be. I pray this all the time for my children. Like, when I'm speaking to them or because they're older, trying to advise them, I pray, God, open my mouth if you want me to speak into this, and close my mouth if you don't. Like, just don't prompt me to say something if I don't need to say anything. Yeah. And I just think that that's a sweet balance. But I think about this person who were answering their question, and I think about how she even said, I don't even want to have a conversation with him.
And that's so unhealthy.
Because I'm scared it's going to come up. Like, I would just avoid talking to him. Because what this gentleman is doing is he's ripping off the Band-Aid every time she starts to heal. So it's like, I'm trying to heal and then ripped it off. And let me just tell you, to the husband, if you're listening, and to anybody else who's in this situation, the shame and guilt already is hard to carry. Just from the shame and guilt from yourself, and if anybody knows about it, from them. Like, the shame and guilt that I felt just for hurting you, for hurting my relationship with the Lord, for hurting my family, for hurting friendships, like, And then just the shame of everybody else knowing and, feeling like I had a spray painted A on my chest at all times, that was heavy enough. But if you were to, well, did you forget what you did?
Yeah.
On top of that, it would be crushing. So I can promise you, you don't have to remind your spouse what they did. They know. And so just the constant talking about it is not healthy.
So I'd love to just for us to give like some really practical advice to some of these couples that are walking through this, and just say, hey, here's some suggestions. Here's some things that you can do. One of the things is, so one of these couples that has said they keep bringing it up and keep wanting to talk about it all the time. Part of that is, and we talked about this the other day, part of that is because for the person that's been wounded and betrayed, it's the deepest wound that we could ever have, is that our spouse betrayed us in this way. And so the affirmation that we need to have, to know that you feel sorrow for what you did, not for yourself, which we know that's part of it, but we need to know that you deeply care about our feelings, because when we think back during that time period, my thoughts go to, well, when you were in the middle of this, you cared nothing about me. You cared nothing about my feelings. You didn't care about the consequences. You didn't care if it hurt me. And so you didn't care about my feelings at all. Well, when I come to you and I'm craving for you to say, I'm so sorry that I hurt you, that's because that's the only thing that can even start to put some sort of an ointment of some sort onto that wound, is for you to then say, I care about your feelings now, and I know how bad that it still hurts, even 13 years later.
Yeah.
So I say all that because the person that doesn't want to have to keep talking about it all the time, so the one that has done the betraying, one of the things that you can help in that way is for you to not bring it up all the time, but just to acknowledge the feelings of your spouse, and just to say, I am sorry, for no reason at all.
I know that I hurt you.
Yes, because if that happens, I truly believe that the betrayed spouse won't really have the need to keep talking about it all the time, because part of it is, I'm bringing it up because you won't ever bring it up. But you're not going to bring it up because you're hurting yourself. You hurt yourself, and you're like, maybe he's not thinking about it right now, so why would I bring it up?
Right.
But I can tell you, even if I'm not thinking about it, and Heather comes up to me and says, I mean, I know you still live with pain every day because of what I did, and I am so sorry for that. There's not going to be a time where I go, I haven't even thought about that in 3 weeks, and
Thanks
look
for
what
bringing
you
that
did.
up.
No, not a chance. So that would be one big thing that I would say is to, if you're the one that did the betraying, be very sensitive and be able to go to your spouse and say, I'm really sorry. I think that will stop some of the daily conversations.
Right. And just to bring to a close, the other other message that we got, and you deserve to be able to ask questions. You cannot just avoid. If you avoid it, you're not getting to the root of the problem. And so I appreciate the fact that you don't want to hurt your spouse by bringing it up, but also you have a right to ask questions if you need to know the answer. I think that was the one that was 1 year. And so it's okay to say, hey, I just have some questions that are really bothering me. I don't feel like I can get past this until some of these questions are answered. And is there a time that we can just sit down and talk? And it's not, let me talk about it for the next 5 months. It's, can we just find a time where I can tell you some of my hurts, and I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to bring it up all the time. I just need some questions answered, and
Well,
that's okay.
And on both of these situations, so much of it is the approach, because even the way that you're talking about this couple that you're talking about, that's exactly it. Is that you go and you say, "Look, I'm not trying to heap more pain on you, but I have some wounds that are not healing, and I think that you can help me heal those wounds if we can talk about this." And, again, maybe it is with another couple present or some coaching or something like that that just gives you an outlet to be able to share some things, because so many of these people, they're not talking to anybody.
No.
It's just bottled up.
That's right.
And then, of course, for this other couple in the same way, there's a way that you can say, "Hey, look, I am like what you did. I'm more than happy to talk, answer questions, that kind of thing. But it's very painful, even for me. And so, I just don't, if we don't talk about it every day, it would be great." So there's just this balance. There's this sensitivity. There's this respect for each other's pain.
That's right.
And I understand that pain, me recognizing your pain took time.
Yeah.
Because all I wanted to do was say, was your fault.
Nor did you care about my pain at the beginning.
That's right.
It
I
was
wanted you to
yeah,
hurt.
That's right.
Because I was hurting.
Where's that bus?
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I can feel this guy, I can even just feel him saying, "Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Why am I worried about her pain?
Right.
Like, do you know what she did to me?" But it takes maturity,
It
and
does.
it takes putting someone above yourself.
And there will come a time where you love your spouse so much, everything that they're becoming and have become, that you won't let anybody, you will not want or let anyone hurt them because of what they did, which is so crazy, because just like what you just joked about, I wanted you to get hit by a bus. But now I will fight anyone that I have to fight if they're putting you down for what you did.
Right.
And I mean, that is just God's miraculous work.
Absolutely.
In each
It's a
one
miracle.
it is a miracle. All right. We are, man, I knew when you said we were going to answer this question, I was like, we could talk about this one forever, because so many people struggle with this.
Yep.
And I feel it. I mean, every single couple we work with, I think, deals with it in some way.
Absolutely. And so to these two couples, you're not the only ones.
Yes. And
do not feel alone.
That's right. And thank you for asking. But again, we're happy to dive into it more and personally. We would love to do that with you. And so again, marriage coaching is a great thing. We love it. We enjoy it, and would love to have some new couples coming up this fall. So thanks for your questions. Keep asking, and we'll see you next time on the Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
Peace.
Peace.